If you've ever been at a cruise port or at a harbor, you will see so many types of ships, but there's one type of ship that you may have never noticed, but it's in every port: tugboats. These agile little boats are essential parts of every port, so much so that it's crazy to believe that there was once an era before tugboats. So, today, we will dive into the history and techniques of the boats you may not have given a second thought about. Let's dive into the rules of navigation. The history of tugboats starts 223 years ago in Scotland. Before steam engines, harbors needed to be made with sailing ships in mind, or rowboats were used. Most of the time, they docked in the harbor and used rowboats to go in between the boat and the shore. It was slow, hard work that made for docking process difficult, but finally, in the turn of the 18th century to 19th century, steam engines came along. These would be far from what they had today, but they would be something. Though only thought of as something that rich people and crazy inventors would use, it would take exactly one of those crazy inventors to change the game. In 1736, Jonathan Hull dreamt up a steamship that could tow another boat into a harbor. Seen as this was before Napoleon was even born, it never left the drawing boards. Until 1801, when construction of the Charlotte Dundas took place in the River Clyde to replace horses as a means of transportation on the canals. She towed barges in the UK canals to carry cargo. Before, the horses would line the banks and tow barges all around the UK. However, it was feared that the boat would erode the banks of the canal, and she was scrapped. But this was just the beginning for tugs. In 1814, in Newcastle, a passenger boat called the Perseverance was built. However, she failed to make a profit and was sold. It was sold to a new man who had a novel idea. He offered to tow a ship out of a busy coal port. The captain of the other ship agreed, and a new age began. The idea caught on, and after the same thing happened, but in London, the world was intrigued. In 1817, a yard in Dunbarton made the first ever ship purpose-built for towing other ships. Her name was Tug. Soon, tugboats became mainstays of British and then global ports. However, many complained that the ships made so much smoke that they ruined the ports. Eventually, ports were redesigned to make it into tighter spaces, and sailing ships now no longer needed to worry about the wind to depart ports, so they could make more journeys and make more profitable ones. Needless to say, this changed the game, with screw propeller tugs taking over. However, there is still one tugboat that is powered by paddle wheels in the world, and that's the Appleton Hull. Yours truly has been there. Eventually, ports also owned the tugs and charged ships to use them. Tugs originally were designed like normal boats, with a long hull, shaft propellers, and all the rest, with only the towing gear being the difference between it and other ships. However, they would later become shorter, with pods and thrusters. As well as that, interesting-looking bridges allowing them to look around. With that, let's go through the types of tugs and how they work. River tugs are mostly used to deliver cargo. They are used a lot on the Mississippi and in China to tow barges in front of them. Also known as pushers, they carry all types of cargo. They usually have low drafts and low freeboard with a blocky superstructure, often with knees at the front to push barges. Seagoing tugs are a wide category. Typical seagoing tugs look like harbor tugs but much bigger, meant to leave the harbor or undergo multi-day operations. This is a wide category, and these tugs can mostly just be normal harbor tugs, but are distinguished by their larger crew accommodation space. Notch tugs are ships that attach to barges and become basically one ship. These are used in the Great Lakes but also oceans, and are a very interesting looking category of ships. Salvage tugs are basically support ships meant for towing huge things across entire oceans. They're frequently used in salvage operations and for the towing of oil rigs as well as other ships. We'll get back to them later. Harbor tugs are by far the smallest and the most well-known. They assist ships in getting in and out of harbors. These ships have displacement hulls, which basically means that it pushes water aside instead of cutting or riding over it. This allows them to stay in the water. Combining that with powerful thrust, it allows these ships to tow ships thousands of times bigger than themselves. This, by the way, is what happens when you tow something without a displacement hull. Often, harbor tugs also have living quarters for crew despite not towing overnight. Tugs connect via a system in which a tug goes to a larger ship, and the crew of the larger ship throw down what is known as a messenger line. The crew then connects this messenger line to the tug's main rope, known as the hawser, using a knot that goes around the messenger line. The messenger line is then hoisted up, and the hawser is put around the ballard on the deck of the ship. Then the ship can tow. However, a major issue with tugs is called girding. This is when a tug is pulled by its cargo sideways. This usually happens when a tug tries to do a tight turn and, towing the cargo, overtakes the boat. The forces applied by the line pull the tug and capsize it. This is a major issue with tugs, but it can be fixed. Usually, this happens when a tug has the rope attached to the middle of the ship, like most tugs do. The most simple way to fix this is called gogging. It's where a line is secured to the deck via a hook or a bar. You can still move the line a bit, but if the cargo overtakes the tug, it'll just pull the tug back instead of flipping it. Quicker releases are also used and can quickly release a load, preventing girding. However, sometimes this can fail. In 2007, while towing off the coast of Norway, the ship MV Bourbon Dolphin was towing an oil rig and had her line gogged to the deck to prevent it flipping over. However, the hook that was keeping the line on snapped and the ship was pulled sideways and capsized. 8 people died. Then the ship eventually sank. This shows the dangers of towing, but for the most part, it is a safe process when done correctly. And with that, that's Tugboats. I definitely missed some things, so let me know if I should make a part 2 for this. Let me know in the comments about anything you'd like to know, technically wise, about maritime, and see you later. Fair winds and following seas.